The ring light on my vanity was still warm when my phone buzzed with a notification from an account I didn't recognize. Nah username. Just a string of numbers. One attachment. A video file. 47 seconds long. I almost deleted it. I get spam like that twice a week. Usually crypto scams or phishing links pretending to be from my bank. But something about the thumbnail made my thumb hover instead of swipe. It was my parents' kitchen. The kitchen I renovated 2 summers ago. The kitchen I'd spent $63,000 on because my mother said the old one was giving her depression symptoms. I tapped play. The camera angle was low. Like someone had propped a phone behind the fruit bowl on the island. My mother was pouring wine into 3 glasses. My father was at the table, laughing at something on his laptop. And my younger sister Paisley was perched on the counter, swinging her legs like a teenager, even though she's 28 years old and has been living rent-free in that house since her divorce. Did Ren actually believe you? Paisley asked, grinning around a mouthful of the imported cheese I'd FedExed them for Easter. My mother laughed. Not a small laugh. A belly laugh. The kind of laugh she'd never once directed at anything I said at the dinner table. Oh. She ate it up. I told her the air conditioning unit went out and I needed $9,000 for a whole new system. She had it transferred before I finished the sentence. That girl doesn't even ask questions anymore. She just opens that wallet like a vending machine. My father snorted. Our little cash cow. Workhorse. Paisley corrected. And all 3 of them cracked up, like it was the funniest thing they'd ever said. That's what Dad called her at Thanksgiving. Remember Ren the workhorse. Keeps the lights on and doesn't ask for sugar cubes. The wine glass in my own hand went still. I was sitting on the edge of my bed in Charlotte, North Carolina. In the townhouse I'd bought 3 years ago with the bonus from my promotion. A townhouse I'd been telling my family was a little starter place, so my mother wouldn't start hinting about how her kitchen tiles were chipping again. I was 31 years old. I had a senior strategy role at a biotech firm. My base was $165. My last bonus was $142, and I had been quietly, systematically, funneling money into the black hole of my family of origin for almost a decade. The video kept playing. The birthday thing is brilliant. Though, my mother was saying, topping off her glass. She's flying us all out there Saturday. For her own birthday, I mean. Who does that? She's throwing her own party. Paying for her own catering. And flying us first class to attend. She's buying the validation? Mom, Paisley said. She rolled her eyes. She's always been like that. Remember how she used to make us those little paper certificates when she was a kid? Best Mom Award. Best Sister Award. She'd hand them out and wait for us to clap. We clapped, my father said, and chuckled. We clapped because if we didn't, she'd cry for an hour. And now she pays us to clap. My mother said, honestly, I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. They all laughed again. The video ended on Paisley saying, just keep the gravy train rolling. She's good for at least another 10 years before she figures it out. And then the screen went black. I sat there for a long time. I didn't cry. I want to tell you I cried. Because I think that's what you expect. But something in me had already moved past the crying stage before the video even finished. I had suspected things for years. The way my mother's voice got warmer on the phone, the moment money came up. The way Paisley posted about her girls' trips on Instagram while claiming she couldn't afford to split the light bill at our parents' house. The way my father, who'd taken early retirement at 59, had managed to buy a base boat I never got to see. I had suspected. I had pushed the suspicion down with the same muscles I used to push down the memory of being 7 years old. Handing my mother a construction paper card, and watching her set it aside without reading it because Paisley was crying about a tangle in her hair. I'd been the fixer since I could walk. The responsible one. The one who didn't make noise. The one who got the scholarships and the internships and the jobs and then... Apparently. The one who paid for the house, the cars, the vacations, the emergencies, and the imported cheese. I put the phone down. I looked around my bedroom. In 3 days. On Saturday. I was scheduled to turn 32. In 4 days. 14 people, including my parents. Paisley. My Aunt Marlene. My cousin Brett. And a handful of extended family I barely knew were scheduled to fly into Charlotte. First class. On my dime. For a birthday dinner, I had been planning for 6 months at a waterfront restaurant with a private room and a string quartet. The total bill. Once catering. Flights. Hotel rooms at the Ballantine. And gift bags were tallied. Was going to come in somewhere around $31,000. I had been planning this party because I thought if I made it big enough, special enough, they might finally, for one single evening, sit across a table and look at me like I was a person instead of an ATM with a face. I opened my laptop. I did not call my mother. I did not text Paisley. I did not scream. Instead, I opened my airline app and changed one thing. My ticket. I had booked myself a one-way to lunch. Round trip by midnight kind of day. Because I was hosting, I changed it to a one-way flight from Charlotte to Rome. Departing Friday morning at 6:15. Business class. Window seat. I booked a 3-week stay at a cliffside hotel in Positano that I had screenshotted 7 years ago when I was crying in an airport terminal on the way back from yet another last-minute trip home to handle yet another of Paisley's crises. I'd told myself that one day I'd stay there. I'd said it the way people say, one day I'll write a book. With no real belief. The room was $1,200 a night. I booked it for 21 nights. I didn't flinch. Then I called the restaurant. I got the manager. A lovely woman named Denise, who'd been helping me plan this for months. I told her I needed to cancel the private room and the string quartet. Effective immediately. And that I understood the deposit was non-refundable. Then I asked her a favor. Denise. I said, the food's already been prepped. Right, the prime rib. The risotto. The sea bass. All of it. Most of it. Yes. We'd start cooking tomorrow morning. Do it anyway. Cook all of it. I'll pay the full bill. But on Saturday night at 7, I want you to deliver every single plate, hot, to the McCandless Avenue fire station. All 3 shifts. And the homeless shelter on Tryon Street. Can you do that? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Denise, in a voice that sounded like she was smiling and maybe tearing up a little, said, Miss Halliday, it would be my honor. I hung up. I called the florist. I told her to deliver the 200 white peonies I'd ordered to the pediatric oncology ward at Levine Children's Hospital. With no card. Just the flowers. And the name of a charity attached. I called the Ballantine. I canceled the block of hotel rooms. I called my Aunt Marlene's travel agent, whom I'd been working with, and canceled the first-class tickets for everyone except one. Aunt Marlene's. I upgraded hers to business class and left the reservation open-dated so she could use it whenever she wanted. Aunt Marlene was the only person in my family who'd ever called me on my actual birthday without also mentioning, in the same breath, something she needed. Then I opened my banking app. This, in retrospect, it should have been the first step. The comments would tell me so later. And they'd be right. But I'd been conditioned since childhood to believe that cutting off a family member financially was a kind of violence. I was about to unlearn that belief in one sitting. I had 3 accounts my family had access to in various ways. A joint savings account with my mother. Opened when I was 19, because she said it would help me build credit. A claim I now realize makes no financial sense whatsoever. A checking account that automatically deposited $1,500 into my brother Corbin's account on the 1st of every month. Corbin is 26. He has been between jobs for 4 years. He lives in the basement of my parents' house, which I paid off. And a third account, a line of credit, that my father had somehow talked me into co-signing on 2 years ago to help him with a short-term cash flow issue. The balance was currently $44,000. None of it had been paid down. I started with the joint savings. I called the bank, waited on hold for 19 minutes, and had my mother removed from the account. She couldn't be removed without her signature in some cases. But this one, because I was the primary and the sole depositor, could be converted into an individual account with a written request and verification of my identity. I did it over a video call with a representative while the moon rose outside my bedroom window. The automatic transfer to Corbin's account was easier. 2 clicks. I turned it off. Then, because I was feeling thorough, I removed him as a beneficiary on my 401k, where he had somehow ended up listed as a secondary a few years back. Something my mother had helped me set up during a visit, and I had never thought to check. The line of credit was the hardest. The representative on the phone walked me through my options. I could pay it off in full, refuse to continue servicing it, and let my father's credit take the hit alongside mine, or negotiate a split. I did the math. $44,000 was real money. But it wasn't life-changing money. Not anymore. Not after what I'd just learned about what they thought of me. I paid it off. All of it. And then I called the bank back and closed the line of credit. Permanently. My father would find out the next time he tried to use it, which I suspected would be soon. Because he always had a little project brewing. Then, and only then, I started packing. I packed light. 2 suitcases. One full of linen and silk. Because Positano in May is warm, and I wanted to finally wear the dresses I'd been buying for years and hanging in the back of my closet like museum pieces. I packed my passport, my favorite novels, and the good headphones. I left the birthday dress hanging in the closet. A cream silk column with a hand-embroidered collar. I'd paid $1,400 for it. I zipped it into a garment bag, left a note that just said for Denise, and set it by the door. Denise had 4 daughters and a tired smile, and I wanted her to have something beautiful. I slept 4 hours. I didn't dream. At 4 in the morning on Friday, I called a locksmith, a 24-hour guy named Raj who'd done work in my neighborhood before. I asked him to come rekey every lock on my townhouse, including the garage and the side gate. He asked why. I told him the truth. He said he'd be there in 40 minutes and to put on some coffee. While Raj worked, I walked through my house and did one more thing. I gathered every item my family had ever given me. There weren't many. A framed photo of Paisley's dog that she'd given me because I thought you'd like it the Christmas she forgot to get me anything. A coffee mug that said "World's Oakiest Aunt" from Corbin, who has no children and had found it at a gas station. A set of dish towels from my mother, clearly regifted, still in the original plastic. I put them all in a cardboard box. I labeled it "Return to Sender." I set it on the porch. Then I wrote one letter. 1. It was addressed to Aunt Marlene. I told her what had happened. I told her about the video. I told her I was going away for a while, and that I loved her, and that I'd call her from Italy. I asked her to please not relay any of this to my parents until Saturday night. After the party that wasn't a party anymore. I sealed it, stamped it, and dropped it in the mailbox at the end of my street as I drove to the airport. The sky was pink by the time I reached the terminal. I remember thinking it looked like the inside of a seashell. I boarded the plane with dry eyes and a cappuccino and a feeling in my chest I could not at first identify. It took me 3 hours, somewhere over the Atlantic, to realize what the feeling was. It was lightness. The absence of a weight I had carried for so long I had forgotten it was a weight. I had thought, for most of my adult life, that the heaviness in my chest was just the texture of being alive. It turned out it was the texture of being used. I landed in Rome to sunshine. I took a car service down to Positano, and I watched the Mediterranean appear between the cliffs like a secret I'd been let in on. The driver didn't try to make conversation. He just put on an old Italian jazz station and let me look out the window. I tipped him €100 when we pulled up to the hotel. He said, "Signora, you are going to have a beautiful 3 weeks." And I believed him. The hotel room had a balcony that overlooked the sea. I stood on it for a long time with my suitcase still unzipped on the floor behind me. I watched a fishing boat putter across the water. I listened to the bells from the church up the hill ring the hour. I had not told a single member of my family where I was. My phone was on. But the only notifications I was responding to were from Aunt Marlene and from my executive assistant at work, to whom I'd given a brief, cryptic heads up that I was taking my 3 weeks of accrued leave starting immediately and that I would not be reachable for non-emergencies. Saturday came. Saturday in Positano is the same as any other day. The sun rises over the cliffs and the cafes open, and the bougainvillea stays purple. I went down to the hotel restaurant at 6 in the evening local time, which was noon in Charlotte, and I ordered a plate of branzino and a glass of white wine from a vineyard in Campania. I was eating at a small wrought iron table overlooking the water when my phone, which I had placed face down on the stone ledge beside me, began to vibrate. I let it vibrate. I ate slowly. The branzino was perfect. The waiter brought out a small dish of limoncello sorbet I hadn't ordered. On the house. Because he said I looked like I was celebrating something important. I was. I told him. I was celebrating my birthday. He brought me a candle and a little cannoli. The phone kept vibrating. When I finally picked it up, an hour later, I had 42 missed calls. 30 from my mother. 8 from Paisley. 4 from Corbin. My mother's voicemails started confused. Then irritated. Then angry. Then desperate. The last one, left 40 minutes ago, was her sobbing that the house had been turned upside down and nobody was home. And where was I, and did I know that Paisley had flown in from Denver and Corbin was in the driveway, and why wasn't I answering? I listened to the last voicemail all the way through. Then I opened my messages and I sent one. It was to my mother, my father, Paisley, and Corbin. A group thread. I attached the 47-second video. The one someone had sent me 3 days earlier. The one I still didn't know the origin of, though I had my suspicions about Aunt Marlene's youngest son, who'd been at Easter dinner and who'd never quite looked my mother in the eye again after that weekend. I didn't include a caption at first. I just let the video sit there. A single little square of evidence, landing in their phones at around 2 in the afternoon Charlotte time, which meant they would have just finished circling the locked gate of my townhouse for the 3rd time. Then I wrote, I canceled the party. I canceled the flights I paid for. I canceled the hotel rooms at the Ballantine. I removed Mom from the joint savings account. I turned off Corbin's monthly transfer. I paid off and closed the line of credit Dad had me co-sign. I rekeyed my house. I am not in Charlotte. I won't tell you where I am. You'll notice all of this within the next 2 weeks, as your automatic withdrawals start bouncing and your phone calls go unanswered. Don't bother coming back to the townhouse. The locks are new and I've notified my neighbors. If you try to break in, I will press charges. This is not a fight. This is not a negotiation. This is an ending. I hope you enjoyed the cheese. Love. The workhorse. I hit send. Then I turned the phone off. Entirely off. I dropped it in my purse. The sun set over the Mediterranean slowly, the way it does in places that know how to take their time. I ordered another glass of wine. The waiter, catching my face, didn't ask if I needed anything else. He just brought it. When the bill came later, there was a small hand-drawn heart in the corner, next to the number. I don't know if he did that for everyone. I like to think he didn't. 3 weeks passed. I did not turn my phone back on for the first 4 days. When I did, I went straight to the settings and blocked the numbers of every member of my immediate family. Everyone except Aunt Marlene. She had left me 2 voicemails. One said, "Sweetheart, I watched the video. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You are a good person and you deserve better, and I am proud of you." The other said, "I've moved into a little apartment downtown. I took your advice about the timeshare. Come see me when you're home." I cried at both of them. Softly. On the balcony. While the morning fog lifted off the water, I walked. I swam. I ate pasta and sat in piazzas and read novels I'd been pretending to want to read for years. I took a cooking class in a stone farmhouse in the hills, where a grandmother named Rosa taught me to make gnocchi and told me, in broken English, that a woman who feeds everyone but herself will one day be too tired to chew. I put that sentence on a post-it note when I got home. I met a woman named Claudia at a bookstore in Sorrento. She was Australian. 52. A divorce lawyer on sabbatical. We had dinner 3 times. She told me, on the last night, that what I had done was not cruel, just correct. I hadn't known I'd been waiting for permission until she said it. I came home on a Tuesday. The townhouse was exactly as I had left it, minus the cardboard box on the porch, which had been taken. A neighbor had signed for a package for me and left a kind note on the door. The air smelled like the lavender plug-in I'd forgotten to unplug. Everything was quiet. The fallout came in pieces. My father's truck was repossessed 6 weeks after I got home. I heard about it from a cousin who still followed me on Instagram. My mother listed the base boat on Facebook Marketplace for 1/3 of what my father had paid. Paisley moved out of my parents' basement and into a tiny apartment in Greensboro with a roommate she'd found online. Corbin, for the first time in his adult life, applied for a job. He got one. At a car rental counter at the airport. Aunt Marlene told me this with something like awe in her voice over the phone. "He's actually showing up," she said. "He's wearing khakis." My mother tried to reach me exactly 4 times. Once through a church deacon. Once through an uncle I barely knew. Once by standing in the lobby of my office building until security asked her to leave. And once by writing a letter. The letter was 9 pages long. I read the first paragraph. It was about how I had broken her heart and how a daughter's job is to honor her mother. I put the letter in the shredder and made a pot of tea. I never spoke to any of them again. I am 33 now. I still work at the biotech firm. I got promoted again last spring. My base is $210,000 and I do not, under any circumstance, tell people in my life what I make. I learned that lesson the hard way. And now I wear it like a small private piece of armor. When people ask how I'm doing, fine. When they ask about family, I say I keep things small and quiet. And most people nod and move on. Because most people have their own complicated families and don't need a monologue about mine. I went back to Positano last October for my birthday. I stayed at the same hotel. At the same little table by the water. The waiter remembered me. He brought me the limoncello sorbet without being asked. I had branzino and wine and a slice of lemon cake. And I sat on the balcony afterward and watched the sun go down. On my way back to the room, I passed a mirror in the hotel hallway. And I caught my own reflection. And for the first time in a long time, I did not see a workhorse. I saw a woman who had taken herself out of a barn she'd been standing in her whole life. And who had, finally, learned how to eat her own meal. At her own table. On her own terms. I turned out the light. I slept well.